It is 5:45, so I will call to order the December 4th, 2025 regular meeting of the Hendersonville City Council. We begin with a silent invocation for people to pray or meditate as they choose, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll rise, please. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, we start with public comment. We have two people who have signed up here. Is anyone online seeking recognition to speak during public comment?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so when I call your name, if you'll come to the microphone and give us your name and address for the clerk's record, please. Ken Fitch.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. This morning, stepping outside, it seemed bitter cold. Yes, it is December, but it was still a startlingly cold morning. And yet, still, our beloved public works workers were out in the cold on their rounds, collecting garbage and recycling. And there seemed to be a lot this week after Thanksgiving. And later, there were workers seen mulching the Main Street trees. And a week before, some had been on hands and knees working at the soils in the gateway intersections. On a morning such as this, we are reminded that these dedicated workers are on the job, rain or shine, in cold, heat, rain and snow, with their essential tasks to provide a safe environment and contribute to our quality of life. And for this, we should celebrate and be grateful now and always for their invaluable service to us all. And on this night of celebration, it's come to our attention that we also need to celebrate someone who spends day and night contributing to our quality of life and to our bonding together. And that is the fact that it is understood that tonight is Allison's birthday. So we must celebrate that event, and we wish her all the happiness of the day and for the rest of her life. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch, as always. Brett Warner.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Madam Mayor. Good evening. My name is Brett Warner, 706 Goldfinch Drive. I work for the state of South Carolina. I also sit on the city's Board of Adjustments. My comments are my own and do not reflect those of my employer or my fellow board members. Following Ken is never easy, and I forgot my notes, so I'm going to try my best. I just wanted to first thank the city for their board recognition evening. Thank you very much for that. I wanted to congratulate the city on the adoption of the strategic housing plan. Also, Lieutenant Matt Capps for his achievement, and also Mr. Manley and Holloway for the outstanding plan, receiving the outstanding plan award. Additionally, I wanted to discuss Whitmire. Several meetings ago, an elderly gentleman gave a very lengthy and passionate speech about the benefits of shuffleboard. And in reviewing the plans that were presented at 1022, my daughter and I went out and measured today, and what currently sits there is 120 feet wide, and a court needs to be 39 feet long. Theoretically, I believe that an irregular quadrilateral could work to sustain 14 shuffleboard courts. I understand not wanting to cater to just one entity, but they've been there a while. I think it brings revenue to the city. And I drove by at their last tournament, I think it was August, there were a lot of people there. So even if 50 people come times $100 a day, that's revenue to the city that I think would be remiss. And putting 7 doesn't really help anybody. So I think it's kind of all or nothing is the way I view it. For Patton Park, as listed for the pump track and the skate park, I want to just ensure that it is both and not just one or the other. So having a young child on a pump park is awesome, but if skateboarders, if that is their only option, if there's not an actual skate park, I feel like those ages intermingling could potentially be risky. The interlocal agreement, as far as I'm publicly aware, the county had sent something over to the city. I don't know if the city has responded or not. I know the county is currently knee-deep in their own issues. But I think this is a great opportunity for the city to take an opportunity to send an olive branch and hopefully get that interlocal agreement signed or something in place before the end of the year. I think that would go a long way. And that is it. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Werner. Okay. You have an agenda before you. Is there anything anyone would like to have added to this agenda this evening?
Mayor Vogt,
Yes.
excuse me, I would like to add at the top of presentations, a special presentation by Mayor Pro Tem Hensley.
Presentations, C.
If we could do it first and then
First?
move everything down, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else anyone would like to have added to the agenda or removed from? Or a motion to approve? Is
Madam Mayor, I move that City Council approve the agenda as amended.
there any discussion? Not those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries, and we have our agenda. Consent agenda. Is there anything anyone would like to have moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda so it can be discussed? Or if not, a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I move that the City Council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries, and we have a lot of things taken care of all at once. Okay, presentations.
Mayor Vogt, if you will join Mayor Pro Tem Hensley up front. I may get fired for this, but that's all right. So, Mayor Pro Tem Hensley and I thought it would be appropriate. So yesterday at the Land of Sky annual luncheon, Mayor Vogt got presented with the first Barbara G. Vogt Leadership Award. The award is dedicated in her honor to annually be presented annually to individuals who outstandingly contribute to the betterment of Western North Carolina and the Land of Sky region. It was presented to Barbara Vogt, and the plaque reads, "For her dedication and leadership on behalf of the City of Hendersonville, Land of Sky Regional Council in Western North Carolina, Mayor Vogt has served the City of Hendersonville and Land of Sky Regional Council with distinction, and she represents the best of public service. Her distinguished record of public service has left a positive impact on our region." It was presented the third day of December 2025 by the Land of Sky Regional Council. So this award will be forever given by Land of Sky, well deserved. As I said yesterday at the meeting, when Nathan called me about it, I said she's going to hate it, but we're going to do it anyway. But I thought it was appropriate before in her home community where she's done such great work to represent it so that the public and our staff and the city council could see the award. So if Mayor Pro Tem will take over from there.
Board being someone else. Embarrassing. But I do appreciate it.
You know what would be really embarrassing? I'll stand up and clap. Yes.
A big one. It's a big, I know. Really big award. All right. Okay, thank you. Next, Police Department. Keith Myhand, you will do the honors for this.
Well, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Blair Myhand, your police chief. You can come closer, Matt. I make them stay on arm's length away from me all the time. Well, first, I will say, Mayor, I think congratulations on the award. I could think of nobody better deserving, but just to have an award named in your honor is pretty special right there. That speaks a lot of what people think about you. So, but tonight, I want to recognize Lieutenant Matt Camp. So, Matt recently graduated from the FBI National Academy, and so I know we talked about this earlier this year, but for the folks listening, that it is a 10-week executive leadership program paid for by the FBI, by the federal government. It's about a $50,000 cost to taxpayers, but not to the taxpayers of the city of Hendersonville. And so Matt was very fortunate to get selected to this. There's only 1,000 people a year that get selected to go to this program. So the fact that we have one of our own to go is very special. And so in our history, we've had 6 people graduate from the National Academy. Those were former chiefs Larry Hesser, Donnie Parks, John Nicholson. I'm a graduate. Captain Laws graduated earlier this year, and now Lieutenant Caps. And so we're working very hard to create a legacy of people that go to this training. And so what I would say, I'll give him an opportunity to kind of talk about his experience while at Quantico, Virginia. But I think it really goes to show the amount of support that the council gives us and being able to develop our people and really invest in their professional development. And so one of mine and John's goals is to really make sure that we develop our staff and ready them for leadership positions in the future, and give this council and the manager the opportunity to really promote our folks from within. And so this is part of that. So I want to personally say how much I appreciate y'all's support in that. So Matt, anything you want to share with the council on?
I just want to thank you for your support and investing in my professional development a lot. It was a great opportunity.
Okay. Well, we'll come up here and y'all stand. Oh, yes.
It's Matt's project.
Yeah, I didn't have to pay for it though, so thanks for the taxpayers for that. And so this award has been announced. There's been a press release, and so I think everyone's aware of it. And so I really just wanted to take a minute to, as the project manager, there's a lot of, that's Matt's project, but and so winning the award, which is very rewarding, and it means means a lot. A lot of people are pointing a lot of attention towards me, but I wanted to make sure that especially the effort of other staff members is acknowledged, especially the communications team that did an incredible job, took a ton of responsibility on, took ownership of the engagement and the feedback that we were receiving from the public, and they did an outstanding job, and it was a pleasure working with them. We had a lot of fun as well. So I want to make sure that they're acknowledged. They're always back there in the background. They're always behind the camera, and so you guys earned this award as much as anybody. And so I want to share that, and it wouldn't have been possible without City Council support and y'all's engagement throughout the entire process. So that's what I really wanted an opportunity to do, is to reflect this award back to everyone else who helped make it possible. So, thank you.
Hey, Matt, let's do a picture.
Nice try.
Hey, Allison. Hey, Allison, come out here, please. And Brian, can you get Brandy and take the picture? Or somebody, yeah.
Thank you all for all the many hours and hard work that went into that. I'm glad it was recognized by someone beyond us. Okay, we have some public hearings this evening. The first is a general obligation transportation bond order public hearing. And who is going to? Ryan?
Like they're tag teaming. Yeah, we'll tag team this. So
Okay.
I'll start it off and then I'll hand it over to Adam.
All right.
Okay. All right, so we have our public hearing tonight for the general obligation bond for transportation projects for $10 million that will be on the March primary ballot. So again, just a quick review of where we are in the timeline. We officially noticed the intent in October, and we've had this on the agenda each meeting in succession. So tonight is the public hearing for the bond and adopting the bond order itself. There's a lot more steps that will occur after this. I'll let Adam touch on that later. But we did want to hit some of the discussion and question from last month around, what will some of the specific projects look like? These aren't fully finalized, but we do have kind of some draft proposals of what we would be doing based on the staff's work, and then also the work of the committees that developed the Walk-Hindo plan and the bike plan. From the resurfacing standpoint, we've shared this before. This is the PCI map of the streets we would be targeting to resurface. This is approximately 1/3 of all these streets in the city that we would resurface over a 5-year period. They're all rated fair and below. And so how we're proposing to do that is to break it into quadrants, and this is a draft. This has not been finalized. This is something that we're looking at, how we break up the project. So essentially we would be resurfacing in a specific area of the city each year of the project, along with the ADA curb ramp improvements, and then also along with specific connectivity, safety, and other transportation projects. Currently, FY26, that 7th Avenue area, we're already planning to do a good deal of those streets in the spring of this upcoming year. So running through some project examples. So the Blythe Street multi-use path is one of the top projects identified in the Walk-Hindo plan. It is a multi-use path that's a DOT project, and so this would be matching funds for NCDOT. I think the total cost of the project is near $4 million, and we'd be responsible for about $560,000 of that. So this is good money to be spending, because we're not going to have to pay the full freight of the project. It'd be in partnership with DOT, so they would cover 80%, and we'd cover 20% of the costs. And this is a pretty good connectivity project, ranked really highly in the Walk-Hindo plan to connect 191 into 64 and the rest of the city. Very similarly, other maybe the second highest or top project. Matt, correct me if I say anything wrong here. Is the Grove Street Sidewalks project. That would be sidewalks on both sides of Grove Street, connecting from Caswell all the way to Spartanburg Highway, so connecting to the activity center and the co-op out that direction and bringing that into Main Street. This project is expected to cost the city about $800,000. So of that 3.75, Blythe and Grove, that leaves about 2.4 million left after these two larger projects would be complete. Orleans 9th Avenue School intersection improvements. So this was identified as a top project on the city project side of the Walk-in-Doe plan. This is due to that narrow street along Orleans, especially coming into the school area where we have that one-way traffic. And this would be focused on improving the walkability and the infrastructure around that school intersection. We have Washington Street sidewalks. This is a connectivity of missing sidewalk connections. This was, I think, our second highest rated project in the Walk-in-Doe plan. So this would be part of our proposal as well. 3rd Avenue, Westlake, and Augusta. So if you know where Augusta comes through at the intersection with Blythe and 3rd, that intersection could use some improvements from a safety aspect, but also it does not have a sidewalk connection further into Westlake. This also overlaps with a FEMA damage project that we have, so this project would develop connectivity there. It is also a highly ranked project in the Walk-in-Doe plan. King Street sidewalks, we've talked about this for many years, but this would complete that section. I do believe this may generate some match from DOT, but we're working through that at this point. So this is on the radar and something we would be pushing forward with. And then from the bike plan, we're also looking at the 5th Avenue bike improvements project. So potential for bike lanes or some sort of protection along those wide stretches of 5th Avenue and talking about paint and that type of improvement in that area. And then lastly, I've got both plans on either side here, just various dispersed projects where we'd be finding areas where we could maybe not do, the full breadth of the identified project, but we could make specific intersection improvements from bulb outs, bike lanes, sharrows, crosswalks improvement. Connectivity, an example, this would require discussion with the neighborhood, but down on Bain Street in this area of the city, there is a connectivity opportunity to connect some streets to create better flow in that neighborhood, but that would need to be discussed with the neighbors. And then also, we just have a lot more Augusta intersections that are demanding some attention, and so the city would be looking at what we could do to make safety improvements in those areas as well. And so that is all I have. Any questions on the project examples we just discussed? Again, this is just drafts, but those are the things we think we would be able to accomplish.
Mayor and Council, good evening. More of the same from me tonight. Many of the actions that I've covered have already been taken care of. Most of the procedural items, everything related to the financial advisor, to introducing the bond order, to adopting the budget ordinance, the initial budget ordinance that may be amended at any time, has been squared away. So last meeting, one of our actions was introducing the bond order. We also, at the November 6th meeting, adopted the capital project ordinance before you. As we've discussed leading up to tonight, that total budget is $14.5 million. Within that, $8.2 million is for street resurfacing, about 2.4 is for ADA curb ramp improvements, and 3.7 is for safety and transportation, with a small amount in our services and fees to pay the cost of issuing our $10 million debt. In addition to the behind-the-scenes work leading up to this, we've released a statement of disclosures, which is a requirement for a bond issuance, a general obligation bond issuance, to be specific. We've created a city website where we are neither endorsing a yes or a no vote, but we are providing very specific information, making that available to the public, and have also recorded all of the information that's been provided in previous city council meetings for anybody who may be interested in reviewing. As I mentioned on that last slide, the city, our elected officials, anybody that's using city funds cannot endorse a yes or a no vote. That's very important. But what we can do is host public meetings to explain the bond proposal. We can produce information in packets, and we can talk about the proposed projects and the estimated cost. And finally, we can create a website, which we have completed. So for your consideration tonight, again, is the public hearing. We recommend that you open that following this presentation. Should we move forward with this, we will go for a referendum in March of 2026. Should the voters approve the issuance of the general obligation bond, we will come back to council on April 2nd to certify the referendum results, and following that, there will be a few staff actions that have to take place in order to actually receive that debt. Are there any questions I can help with?
Anyone have questions? Mr. Murr or
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Polly?
I don't know if this question is for you or Mr. Polly, but when, is there any engineering or professional services fees that are included in the scope of the work, or are we able to complete, like, in-house the engineering and design for some of these projects?
I'll speak to the general part, and if we want to get more specific, we can. When we composed the project estimates, we did include any consulting fees. It was a full project scope that was included in our individual project estimates.
It will likely be a mix.
Okay.
So, Blythe and Grove, we already have agreements with DOT for some of the design work. We've already paid some of that money out. So DOT would be consulting with a design firm to design the projects, let them and construct them. We would have projects that are outside of our capacity to design, either from a time frame perspective or just from a actual scope of the project perspective. So we would contract with a design firm or an engineering firm to design that project and bid it and construct it. And there's probably some smaller things that we would do ourselves as well.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
We will open that public hearing. And we have two people signed up for comments on this. First of all, Ken Fitch.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. Adam Murr, how does he do it? The skills seem beyond normal human capacity and understanding. And in his case, his intelligence is not artificial. And look, he helped to bring us the new fire station. So we stand in wonder as yet again he brings forth another proposal. A major proposal that addresses important needs. Some of the examples cited are definitely trouble spots. Do not try to walk on Blythe Street, particularly at twilight or after. It is a frightening experience. The Grove Street sidewalk, that has been an obstacle course for years. And King Street, that is a really very tricky location to maneuver. Recently, Apple Country bus did not come, so I was with another elderly gentleman who was trying to make his way, and getting across 25 in that area, this is not a safe or advisable experience for anyone to undergo. And of course, resurfacing is an issue that we're all very aware of in the city. But the proposal brings with it further issues. At a recent council conversation, the issue of the increases in taxes was cited as a burden for some, and the prospect that this worthy proposal would increase a tax burden for some would be a concern. So a clarification of the tax burden becomes essential. Is it correct that the bond will incur a tax increase? That it would be $20 per $100,000 in property value, and this would be more than 1 year. And in the coming reval, would that generate a further increase? And will this high level of taxation continue into the future? It is a concern that will give some pause, and it is something that we have to be thinking about. Of course, in this discussion, we have to understand and remember the situation that the city confronts with a large number of tax-exempt properties, but for which services are provided. But for some in the current economy, this taxation issue is not a happy situation. And any further clarification you can offer would be appreciated. Any relief that you can see for those who need it would be helpful. But Adam, at least you tell it like it is, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Chris Daniels.
Good evening, y'all. Thanks for having me. Again, it's hard to follow Mr. Fitch there, but I'm at, Christopher Daniels, 1540 Kensington Road. I'm with Bike Walk Hendersonville, as a lot of y'all know. We are a local nonprofit. We envision a community where the streets are safe and thriving spaces for everyone to bike, walk, roll, and stroll. I'm here to express our strong support for the referendum. We had time to review the proposal and discuss it in depth, and we think it does provide a great opportunity for the city to improve safety and quality of life. Just like Mr. Fitch was alluding to, and just like we saw in that presentation, there's lots of trouble spots where if you're a pedestrian, if you're on a bike, if you're trying to get through our city without a car, it's dangerous and it's difficult. And a lot of people just give up. We as we talked about a couple of months ago, we have the highest pedestrian fatality rate, more than Charlotte. Like, it's pretty bad. And this is a great opportunity to fix that, recognizing that there's a lot of small changes that may not cost a huge amount of money. There's projects that are very expensive, like Blythe, some of the ones mentioned, but there's also small changes we can make at various intersections. And so recognizing that, maybe when we resurface one road, we also change some lines on the road to make that crossing safer, whatever it may be, thinking outside the box in terms of how we can use this money to really, I would say, dramatically improve a lot of the connections and safety around our town. A couple months ago, I had the opportunity to go to a transportation summit in Hickory. And they did something similar to this on a much bigger scale. But about 10 years ago, they passed a huge referendum with a bond, and they were able to transform their city with connectivity, with walking routes, biking routes. It's a whole different place to live. And they used that to basically, rejuvenate their city. Y'all are probably aware of that, but they've really taken advantage of that. So I see this as a great opportunity for us on a smaller scale to do something similar and really address quite a few trouble spots around town. And I think really it's long overdue. I do share, I'm sure there's lots of people obviously concerned about any increase in taxes, particularly with the economy and with inflation already. But I would just say we are happy to partner with the city, use our resources to get out the word. While y'all are not allowed to necessarily endorse a yes or a no, we can. And we're happy to help y'all do that and to encourage our fellow citizens to do the same. And you know, we can let people make that decision for themselves if they think it's worth it. You know, frankly, I would love to pay an extra $20 per year so that I could be more confident my kids are not going to get hit when they're biking through our town. So thank you for everything y'all are doing. I also just want to say that city staff has done a great job looking at all these projects, integrating the walk plan as well as the, you know, hopefully newly drafted bike plan in the coming year or two. So those, I think all those working in tandem is just a great opportunity for the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downs. Is anyone online seeking recognition to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor Vogt, would you,
Yes.
council, would y'all like for Brian to address the tax
Okay.
question?
Sure.
Yep, so the question on the tax is a good one. So Ken, thank you for bringing it up. For clarification, for the general obligation bond issuance, we have to state our estimated impact. And our decision point there is to say, you know, 0 to however many pennies we think it's going to impact the taxpayer. It has to be framed in some wording around, you know, $20 per $100,000 of value for the statutes. Now, when we looked at this back in April during the budget planning process, and what we presented at the May budget workshop was we don't think adding this bond issuance is going to trigger us to need to raise taxes. So we don't think it's going to impact us in that way. However, to be cautious, we want to put some cover in there just in case. And so this debt issuance is about $900,000 a year at the estimated interest rate and the borrowing amount. However, it's level principal, so that number lowers every single year. It's not like a standard mortgage. It's not, you don't pay the same amount every single payment. And so it's hard to say exactly how many pennies that equals, right? And so we think over the life of the loan, if the economy were to go bad, if we were to, you know, lose a major economic player or major assessed value on the tax books, we wanted to give ourselves some cover in a tax rate that would support that bond issuance over time, and we felt 2 pennies was the appropriate number. Now, that's our, you know, fail-safe, right? We don't think we're going to have to raise taxes at all to support this based on our growth model, but we just want to be safe.
And Brian, one other thing, correct me, and do correct me if I'm wrong. If I remember your original PowerPoint, when we were looking at the PCI scores too, that if we did nothing, we didn't add any additional money,
right,
we would go backwards.
That's correct.
On pavement condition to stay where we are at 79. I think we're 79.
73.
Or 70. Anyway, to get to any improvement, we'd have to add more money, which was going to require more tax money. And to even get higher, our ultimate goal was 79, I guess.
That's right, yeah.
You would have to raise the tax rate, maybe even 4 cents if you did pay as you go. If you look at the spread of money we would have to add to the paving budget.
Right,
so
yeah.
That's another thing to consider.
And it doesn't get us any of the other items.
Any of the other items.
Just want to clarify that. I know it's kind of muddy, but we want to say some amount just to give us cover. We don't want to say 0 and then, you know, something goes wrong, right? So it's just a conservative approach.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Anything else anyone wishes to say? Not, we'll close that public hearing. Council, discussion? Motion?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council open the public hearing. Is that right?
No, on the.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I see now. Sorry, guys. All right, let me start over. Madam Mayor, I move City Council adopt the bond order authorizing the issuance of $10 million general obligation transportation bonds of the city of Hendersonville, North Carolina, and adopt the resolution setting a special bond referendum and directing the publication of notice of a special bond referendum and notification of the Board of Elections as presented.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Not, those in favor of the proposed 2025 general obligation bond order and referendum, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. All right, thank you, staff, and we'll look forward to hearing more about that. Much more about that, I'm sure. All right, second public hearing, a rezoning, standard rezoning, Locust Street small area rezoning. Mr. Manley again.
Yes, good evening. You all are familiar with this rezoning. I'm not going to give a full presentation. The reason why this additional parcel was not included 2 or 3 months ago is because the consent form had not been submitted yet. And then the reason it wasn't included last month is because of a glitch in noticing. And so it's the parcel in yellow, all the other parcels in red, or the parcel that's in blue here and purple, and then all the other parcels that are in purple and yellow were part of this area rezoning. The parcels that are I-1 that are nearby would have to petition the city to, in the future, if they wanted to be part of the CMU zoning district, and kind of close the enclave there. And with that, I'll see if there's any questions on this one.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
All right, we will open this public hearing. No one has signed up to speak here. Is anyone online wishing to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have one hand raised.
Okay.
You are unmuted.
Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue. I wanted to comment about this property for a number of reasons. One, on that aerial map, it looked like maybe there was a blue line stream or a stream of some sort running through there. Also, at the end of Highland Avenue, that last house right before you get to this open space, that's actually where my grandmother was raised. So for us, that's very historic. Raised there, lived her young adult life there, lived through the Great Depression there in that house. So that whole little town area is historic. So my concern is, CMU, would it still honor the character of that neighborhood? Would it still keep those trees at the end of Highland Avenue to kind of buffer what could potentially go there? Because I'm not totally sure, but I'm guessing they could probably put some condos there with some height. So those are some of my concerns about that. And then, of course, the open space. So yeah, protections about the character of the building types, the height, the trees that are there, and the stream that looks like it runs through there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else here? All right, we'll close that public hearing. Council?
Madam Mayor, whoops, I'm sorry. I move the City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the City of Hendersonville, changing the zoning designation of properties possessing pins number 9569-80-4629 from I-1 Industrial Zoning District to CMU, Central Mixed Use Zoning District, based on the following. The petition is found to be consistent with the City of Hendersonville Gen H Comprehensive Plan, based off of the fact that the proposed zoning of CMU aligns with the Gen H 2045 Comprehensive Plan, future land use and conservation map, and the character area description for downtown. Furthermore, we also find this petition to be reasonable in the public interest based off of the fact that CMU zoning is more compatible than I-1 zoning due to the differences in dimensional standards and permitted uses. CMU zoning better protects the existing character of the built environment and supports recent reinvestment and the economic vitality of 7th Avenue District. And CMU zoning will protect against incompatible into industrial uses.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of this standard rezoning Locust Street small area, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries, and that rezoning has been taken care of. Okay, next is a zoning text amendment, eliminating a waiting period.
Good evening again. I think my presentations will get progressively slightly longer. This one is also relatively short. This is a zoning text amendment. It is essentially, it should be very simple and straightforward. It's basically a requirement for compliance with a new state statute, HB 926, which prohibits zoning codes from requiring a waiting period after a rezoning request for a specific property has been denied. So currently, the city's zoning ordinance requires a 12-month waiting period after a rezoning is denied before an applicant can petition to rezone the same property to the same zoning district that was previously requested. This prohibited an applicant from, immediately turning around and refiling a petition to rezone the same property to the same zoning district over and over after City Council had already made a determination on the matter. You may be familiar with an example, a recent example that I could think of where this was relevant with the First Avenue Villas. That CMU CZD application was denied, and then the next month the applicant came back with a revised plan, but they could not request CMU CZD again. So that one actually did come back, but they chose a different zoning district. It ended up being urban residential CZD because of this requirement in our code. Under the new state law, this requirement of a waiting period is now prohibited. So as such, staff is proposing that City Council strike this from the zoning ordinance. And then similarly, back in 2015, changes to state law removed the process for a protest petition. Another procedure for appealing a rezoning decision is now in place. However, the old language was still on the books in Chapter 11, the same chapter that we were already amending for this other more recent state statute change. Therefore, staff is proposing City Council strike this language from the zoning ordinance as well. Staff found this to be consistent with the comprehensive plan and for considering compatibility, really related to the adoption of the new state law, as did the criteria for change in conditions in terms of public interest. In some cases, removal of the waiting period may not be in the public interest. In other cases, it may. In any case, being compliant with state law is generally considered to be in the public interest. So there's no known impacts to public facilities or known effect on the natural environment. The Planning Board recommended the consistency statement shown on the screen and put forth the rationale for approval on the screen. We also have rationale for denial. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Okay. Any questions? All right, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
All right, we have no one signed up here to speak. Is there anyone online wishing to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have one hand raised.
Okay.
Lynn Williams, you are unmuted.
Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue. I spoke up in the planning board as well about this, and I realized that this isn't, your hands are tied, so you can't really do anything here. But for the record, I did want to mention how for the citizens, it can be traumatic to go through these processes over and over and over again, back to back. I myself have lost 2 aunts, an uncle, and multiple people I love close to me in the past year. So to come to all the meetings back to back makes it really hard on us to have to choose between our livelihoods, the ones we love, and trying to protect our neighborhoods. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Is there anyone else?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, anyone here? All right, we'll close that public hearing. Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map or ordinance Article 9 amendments to align with the NC General Statute based on the following. The petition is found to be consistent with the Gen H Comprehensive Plan based on the information from staff analysis and because the proposed amendment aligns with the Gen H Comprehensive Plan. We also find this petition in conjunction with the recommendations presented by staff to be reasonable in the public interest based on the following. This proposed zoning changes bring the zoning ordinance into alignment with NC General Statute with the elimination of waiting periods for the denied rezoning application. And also the proposed changes bring the zoning ordinance into alignment with NC General Statute by eliminating provisions for protest petitions.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of this zoning text amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, motion carries, and that one's taken care of. All right, next, zoning text amendment, C4 upzoning update.
Yes, we do have another zoning text amendment, and it also relates to changes in state law. This is specifically targeting the C4 zoning district, but there are some kind of broader implications that I will cover. First, I wanted to take a look at the map. You can see the parcels that are shown in red with the black outline. Some are inside the city limits, some are outside. Those are in the ETJ. And so this gives you an idea where C4 currently is located. These would be the properties that are impacted by changes to the zoning, and then any future properties that were rezoned to C4 would also inherit the changes if they're adopted. It makes up less than 1% of the land in the city, so we're not talking about broad impacts here. This relates to the downzoning law passed around this time last year. That law defined downzoning with kind of three main characteristics. One was, so it's a zoning map or text amendment that reduces permitted uses that are granted to a property or within a zoning district. And then that kind of breaks down into two categories. You cannot reduce the total number. This is based on the interpretation of the definition that you cannot reduce the total number of uses in a zoning district or by rezoning a property. And then you also cannot remove a use that was previously permitted for a property or for a zoning district and then take that use away. So that would be the reducing of the permitted uses. The second is decreasing the density, and that takes a couple of different forms. And then the third is creating any nonconformities, and that is specific for non-residential zoning districts. And so I'll point back to the relevance of kind of going through this checklist to determine whether something's a downzoning or not. So the basic premise of this text amendment was that it is intuitive that a rezoning from any residential zoning district to a commercial zoning district would be an upzoning, but by a state law definition, that's actually not the case. And so we are specifically looking at neighborhood commercial, making adjustments to that C4 zoning district so that it would be an upzoning from any of our residential districts. So this takes any and all of the permitted uses and special uses that are currently allowed in our residential zoning districts and adds those, any that are not currently found, into the C4 zoning district list of uses. It reduces the standards in the dimensional standards, setbacks, minimum lot size in C4 to meet the least restrictive dimensional standards in the residential districts. And then it makes adjustments as necessary to ensure compatibility. And I'll go through that. The first thing that staff did, kind of thinking back to that the state definition for downzoning, staff, first thing we did was to confirm that there was that there are indeed more total permitted uses in C4 than any of the residential districts. So that let us know that we would not trigger a downzoning based on Part 1A should we rezone a property from residential to C4. The next step was to compare the permitted uses in C4 to all the uses in the residential districts and identify if there were any uses allowed in the residential districts that would that were not allowed in C4. And those are highlighted, those are in red, where you have a column of all the uses from C4, and then you have a column with all the uses from R40, R20, R15, R10, and R6. The same analysis was performed for special uses, and those uses were identified, and the same analysis was done for the dimensional standards. And this relates to the second part of the definition related to no reduction in density. So since setbacks, lot sizes, and height requirements have an impact on the amount of development that can occur on a site, these dimensional standards cannot be more restrictive or else it is a downzoning. So staff identified the least restrictive standards in the residential districts compared to C4. And then for Part 3 of the downzoning definition related to nonconformities, C4 does not have any standards or requirements that would render an existing building nonconforming. All existing C4 structures, uses, and lots that are conforming today would remain conforming under these changes, and any non-conforming structures, uses, and/or lots that currently exist in C4 today would either be brought into conformity or unimpacted by the proposed changes. So that went through our checklist for the downzoning definition. So taking a look at the actual proposed language, first we have the new permitted uses that are proposed. These are uses that are currently permitted in all or some of the residential districts that would need to be maintained in C4 to avoid a downzoning. These include the addition of agriculture, camps, childcare homes, and neighborhood community centers. Staff also want to quickly highlight that we added 5 permitted uses just earlier this year in those additional residential uses that were added. So that was post the downzoning law. So we've already added 5, we're adding an additional 4 for a total of 9 increase in permitted uses. At the planning board, staff had proposed to shift 4 uses that were identified by the Legislative and Long Range Planning Committee of the Planning Board from the permitted use list to the special use list, making them subject to supplementary standards. This would require additional setbacks when adjacent to residential uses. That ended up, being somewhat problematic from legal review and essentially unnecessary. And so the updated language, the updated recommendation from staff is shown. Those 4 uses would stay under the list of permitted uses, but they would be subject to additional supplementary standards. And I'll talk more about that shortly. But essentially, this avoids any of these uses having to go to the Board of Adjustment for approval, but they will have to meet the same standards as would have been, as was essentially proposed by that legislative committee. And again, for the special uses, this list is what was presented to Planning Board, but it's been modified based on the same information I just presented to reflect the 4 special uses that are found in residential districts that are currently not found in C4 zoning district, so that all those things would be equal if this is adopted. And then the proposed changes to the dimensional standards will align C4 with R6. R6 is our least restrictive residential district. This results in a slight reduction in the minimum lot size in the front setback, and it cuts the side and rear setbacks in half. Changes to Article 16, these are the supplementary standards, so kind of coming back to those comments that were made earlier. So this would apply to the 4 uses that were identified by the Legislative and Long Range Planning Committee and the Planning Board as potentially having negative impacts on neighboring residential uses. In this case, the supplemental standards for these 4 uses would be that they would have to comply with the same setbacks that are currently required for C4. if they are located adjacent to single-family or two-family residential uses. So this results in a no net increase in the dimensional requirements for these uses compared to what is required under today's standard, so it would not be a downzoning. And I've kind of broken this down, hopefully in a way that's helpful on the right side, where you end up, if you trigger a supplementary standard and the additional setback, then you are going right back to the setback that's required today. As I move towards the comprehensive plan consistency, I wanted to highlight something on our future land use map and look at the neighborhood center designation, which is the future land use or character area that most closely aligns with our C4 zoning district. And you can see the red areas on the map that are primarily concentrated around key intersections, with the exception of Asheville Highway along that corridor. And I'll just quickly note that that area in particular is already zoned to a more intense commercial district, but it was shown as neighborhood center on the future land use map to reflect a vision for redevelopment. Most of these parcels are not very deep, and due to that shallow nature, they're not conducive to large-scale commercial operations. Additionally, these commercial areas are flanked by residential, making them ideal for neighborhood-scale businesses. That close proximity to residential uses is also a contributing factor in limiting the viability of large-scale commercial operations along this corridor. So that's why that's shown that way. But otherwise, you're thinking about neighborhood centers at these kind of intersections with small kind of nodes around, that serve a particular geographic area or neighborhood. I've also shown the focused intensity nodes, which are larger and more intense. These are, concentrated around higher traffic intersections where major arterials are meeting. It's where more intense land uses are already located and where we should be thinking about locating more intense land uses going forward. And you can think about these things similarly with the neighborhood center. You think about it in the same way. That it's concentrated around a node at an intersection, but it's at a smaller scale. And the intersections are of more minor thoroughfares instead of major thoroughfares. Continuing with the comprehensive plan consistency, staff found that the proposed changes to the uses and dimensional standards in C4 are consistent with the Gen H comprehensive plan. For considering compatibility, staff reviewed the proposed changes with existing conditions, the goals and guiding principles of the Gen H comprehensive plan as well. We found that the proposal is compatible given the nature of the proposed uses as it relates to the existing uses permitted under C4. I will note that typically you would not see agriculture uses, for instance, being added to a neighborhood commercial district. Those two things are not, intuitively do not make a lot of sense together. But in terms of the way that the downzoning law has been written, it is very much written in terms of a pyramid of permitted uses or a Russian doll, where the intensity of uses stacks into each other. As you go up in zoning districts, you're going up in intensity, and it's defined in a way where everything will fit very nicely. That is not the way that our zoning districts are necessarily written, and so as a result, we're making some changes that wouldn't necessarily be intuitive, but maybe are necessary in today's dynamics. So, looking at change conditions, again, I would refer to the state law change under our consideration of public interest. I will say that this change could allow for the implementation of the city's Gen H plan, specifically as it relates to the application of the neighborhood center character area. This character area is generally specific to small constrained areas concentrated around key secondary intersections. For public facilities, the amendment would have the potential to allow for greater utilization of existing infrastructure by creating opportunities for infill commercial development. And there are no specific environmental impacts associated with the text amendment. The planning board supported this with the comprehensive plan consistency statement shown, and the 3 points of rationale for approval on the screen. And we also have draft rationale for denial as well. And with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Any questions? No? Okay. Again, thank you. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
We will open the public hearing. No one present has signed up. Is there anyone online wishing to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we have one hand raised.
All right.
Lynn Williams, you are unmuted.
Lynn Williams, Chadwick Avenue. For this situation, it also sounds like you don't really have much choice. It wasn't presented exactly the same way that I remember in the planning board meeting, but now it's explained better. My concern here is if you take the Canuga C4 zoning request that's coming up and how it's getting resubmitted, you know, you have the community there really concerned about the C4 coming through. It does have an impact. There are considerations about traffic and buffers and just the impact that some of these uses can bring to these areas. And so when you look at that map and you see those red spots on the map, I really think it's important for you to have take a more considered look at those particular areas and how that's going to affect the neighbors, so that maybe you could consider that. It doesn't sound like you're going to change much here, but I appreciate how the planning board had asked for those supplemental requirements for some of those uses. And so maybe something like that could be considered generally for the changes of everything to C4. Just more consideration for these individual pieces of land instead of just blanket change. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Is there anyone else seeking recognition?
No, Madam Mayor.
Anyone else here? All right, we'll close that public hearing. Council?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council adopt an ordinance amending the official City of Hendersonville zoning ordinance Article 5 zoning district classifications and Article 16 supplementary standards to update the C4 neighborhood commercial zoning district based on the following. Petition is found to be consistent with the Gen H comprehensive plan based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing, and because the proposed amendments align with the Gen H comprehensive plan, future land use map, and guiding principles. We find this petition in conjunction with the recommendations presented by staff to be reasonable and in the public interest based on the information from the staff analysis and the public hearing, and because the proposed amendment creates an opportunity to accommodate neighborhood commercial infill development. The proposed amendment allows for greater utilization of existing infrastructure, and the proposed amendment increases opportunities for additional housing in key locations in the city.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the zoning text amendment or upzoning update in C4, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it, motion carries, and that one has been taken care of as well. Thank you. Right, now we have 3 landmark nominations. Okay, the first one is the Eubank Whitmire House. Hayes, you're already up there.
Yes,
go ahead.
I'm ready to go. Good evening, everyone. We do have 3 landmark nominations. It should say the Eubank Whitmire House. You all are familiar with the property owner who initiated this. It is my colleague, Matt Manley, who's here, can speak to why he wanted to become a landmark. I'll talk a little bit about the significance of the home. I did want to note that the applicant was given the same amount of assistance by staff that other applicants receive. Staff reviewed the application, gave feedback, and it was also thoroughly reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission's designation subcommittee, as well as the State Historic Preservation Office. So this is the front facade of the house, so it's a craftsman style home. It's located kind of off of Haywood Road 191. This is just pointing out some of the prominent areas. So you have the Druid Hills Historic District, so it's not part of that historic district, it's outside of that area. It's also not identified, there's an architectural survey that the city had done in the 1980s. It's not identified in that survey. The Historic Preservation Commission recognizes that survey needs to be updated. And so it likely would be included in an update to the survey if that was done today. So, but, you know, that does not mean that it can't be listed as a landmark. And the applicant has produced a nomination that speaks to its significance, which I'll get into. So just a brief history, the property itself was platted in 1925, constructed around that time as well. There were various owners, the most notable being Mayor Boyce Whitmire from 1969 to 1989. And then, so that's where the Whitmire part of the name comes from. Eubank comes from the owner of that area, so Eubank, prominent Hendersonville resident back in the day, and they owned that area and actually did the subdivision. So hence the name Eubank Whitmire House. So here's a site plan provided by the applicant. So just to note, the entire property is not being proposed to be designated. You don't have to do that. You can designate a portion of the property. And so the portion that's being designated is really the historic core of the property. At some point, there were two parcels that were recombined, so it's that front part of the property that has the main craftsman style home that you saw earlier, as well as an accessory garage, an apartment unit in the back, which I'll talk about in a little bit, as well as, you know, the landscaping and the other elements of the landscaping, such as stone walls and things like that. So getting into the architectural significance of the property. So as I mentioned before, this is craftsman style home, kind of a quintessential craftsman style. It has a low-pitched hipped roof. It has a brick facade, which is actually a little unusual for a craftsman style home. It is believed to be a later addition to the home. However, still within, you know, what we would consider to be the historic era of this house. So it kind of makes it a little unique from some of the other craftsman style homes that we have in the area. The front porch has boxed brick piers that support tapered wood columns with decorative molding, another very craftsman style element. There are the original 6/1 windows remaining throughout the entirety of the house. And then you have the exposed rafter tails, which you can see the underside of in that lower right-hand corner, kind of a unique curved element there. And then you can see it peeking out from underneath the roof line, which is also a very quintessential craftsman style element. So this is just going around the house. This is one side, that northern side of the house on the left-hand side, and then the southern side of the house on the right-hand side of the screen. And then this is the rear of the home. This is that accessory unit as well as garage in the backside. This was likely constructed around the time of the home as well, and so it's considered a contributing element to the historic significance of this property. The applicant provided a helpful map showing other pre-World War II historic structures in kind of the vicinity, and this does a really good job of painting this picture that this property is kind of on its own in this section of town for being kind of an older structure. So the Historic Preservation Commission has started doing a significance analysis for each of its landmarks to show why this is significant, show and tell why this is significant. I can tell you the first 4 items come from criteria to be listed on the National Register for Historic Places, which is kind of the top of the, it's a huge honor to be on the National Register. It's a pretty high bar to get onto the National Register. So the commission also added that 5th element, which really ties it back to the local community and thinking of the significance as it pertains to the local community. So the commission, I will say, recommended this for approval in a 7-to-1 vote. And they determined that it was significant for two reasons. The first being associated with the lives of persons significant in our past. So it says the Whitmire House is associated with Mayor Boyce Whitmire, who lived in the home during his tenure and oversaw significant city improvements, including the construction of Spartanburg Highway and the introduction of the serpentine design on Main Street. And then, as I pointed out in the photos earlier, it also is significant for its architectural history, being an outstanding example of craftsman-style architecture. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
We'll open the public hearing, and we've got one person signed up, Matt Manley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to briefly say that just recognize the uniqueness of the position. Obviously, this is a comfortable position for me to be up here in front of y'all, but not in this role as an applicant. So, putting y'all in a unique position, put the HPC members in a unique position, and especially fellow staff and community development director as well. So I just want to acknowledge that, aware of that, and appreciate how all of it's been handled. And I'm here for any questions you may have.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Is anyone online seeking recognition to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right. Anyone else here? We'll close that public hearing. Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council approve the adoption of an ordinance designating the Eubank Whitmire House, PIN 9569247137, as a local historic landmark.
Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of designating the Eubank Whitmire House as a historic landmark, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it, motion carries. One down. Congratulations. Okay, number 2 is the Waverly.
Yes, so the Waverly, or the Waverly Inn, as you all may know it, on North Main Street. Once again, this is a owner-initiated application for landmark nomination, or landmark designation, rather. So here's the Waverly Inn. It is a Victorian-era structure. I'll get more into the architectural significance of the structure in just a little bit. You all are very familiar with where it's located, I'm sure, near Hendersonville High School, kind of at the end of the commercial part of Main Street before you hit the fire station. So the Waverly was constructed in 1898. There was a fire in 1910, and after that, the third floor was added on. Originally, it was a 2.5-story structure. It was turned into a full third floor after that 1910 fire. And it really capitalized on the railroad coming to Hendersonville. Hendersonville has historically been a tourist destination. It still is a tourist destination. And when the railroad came to town, people wanted to come and visit. And so the Waverly opened as an inn, and its claim to fame is that it's the longest continuously operating inn in the city of Hendersonville. And so it's still doing that job, catering to tourists today. Getting into the architectural significance, I mentioned it's a Victorian-era building. There are two styles that it's really showing here. You have the Queen Anne style and the Eastlake style. Victorian era, think Queen Victoria. It was right at the end of her reign when this was constructed, but that was very much a popular style of architecture at the time. As mentioned before, that third story was added after the fire of 1910, but much of the detailing is original. So you can see the wood detailing that's there on the porch. We can get in closer, those are original front doors. And then I'll mention the stairway, which is a quintessential East Lake style stair, the applicant has agreed to designating this stairway. So with landmarks, with historic landmarks, you can actually designate interior features. The Historic Preservation Commission felt that that was a very important part of this building, and so they asked the applicant. The applicant was very happy to designate the interior stairwell as well. This is just going around the building, so this is looking at the north elevation. You can see the dining room stretching off the side of the building there, and the Widow's Walk flat roof that's on top of it. This is looking from the southern elevation. There was an addition that was added in the 1940s. It's that low-level addition, which has more guest rooms in it. And then there's a back garage on the property, which is also part of this designation. It was constructed in the 1920s. We aren't sure of the exact date, but it is a contributing structure to the historic significance of the property. So it would also be designated as part of this landmark designation. Looking at the significance analysis, the commission did recommend this unanimously for approval on, and there are 3 elements of significance here. So associated with significant events, the Waverly is an exemplary, early-in constructed to accommodate tourists traveling in Hendersonville. Tourism has long served as one of the city's foundational and continuing economic industries, and the Waverly played a significant role in supporting that development. We already talked about the architectural significance. And then this one, the commission believes checked the box for local significance as well, saying the Waverly has served continuously as an inn for more than a century and remains a familiar landmark within the community, contributing to the identity and heritage of Henderson. That, I can answer any questions.
Questions? Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
We'll open that public hearing. We have one person who has signed up to speak, Ken Fitch.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. The Waverly. The Waverly, of course it's the landmark, the oldest continually operating inn in the city. Entering the city from the north is perhaps the first large historic building we see. It's also an anchoring landmark for a cluster of historic buildings one encounters before entering the Main Street Historic District. Its historic architectural features are distinctive and treasured, often referenced by and referencing adjacent buildings in subtle details, including the church, and yes, even the architectural marvel that is our new fire station. And its shaded landscape contains witness trees that were young in the earliest photographs of the site. But tonight we must celebrate the current owners who in their application for city landmark are stating a commitment to stewardship for this historic landmark and its unique features, so that it would still exist perhaps 100 years from now, without any severe altering its unique historic appearance and character or transformation to an inappropriate use. And so that the witness trees would spend the rest of their lives providing the shaded natural enclave that is enjoyed by visitors who sit on the porches in cool respite from the heat, as well as the pedestrians who pass by. And for passers-by, those distinctive porch elements on 2 levels present a living historic use that demonstrates the functionality of those architectural elements in our region. And for the visitors sitting on the porches, they can enjoy the passing traffic and see the passers-by of all ages, including school children, and they might even catch a glimpse of our historic walking mayor on her way to her historic home. That may be a historic home landmark one day, a special home where she lived with her husband, a doctor who had such an important impact on so many in the community. Yes, the inn provides a living history experience, which is an important aspect of the commitment of the applicants. As you will note, a proposal for a new hotel is on the agenda tonight. But in another previous hotel consideration, our mayor pointed out that the experience of staying in a historic inn like the Waverly is a special experience that would attract some visitors, especially in our historic city. Over its long existence, the Waverly has hosted thousands of visitors, including a delegation of state legal figures, and in recent history, those working in post-Helene recovery. And yes, there is an urban legend that none other than Oprah Winfrey arrived in sunglasses one night. Now, it is an urban legend, and it may not be true, but it is true that if Oprah did come to Hendersonville, this would be a choice for her to rest her weary bones in this special historic setting. The Waverly is a special place indeed, and we commend the applicants for their commitment to stewardship that this designation would confer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Is there anyone online wishing to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, anyone else here? And we will close that public hearing. Okay. Council, discussion or a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council approve the adoption of an ordinance designating the Waverly PIN 9568-79-5760 as a local historic landmark.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of designating the Waverly as a local historic landmark, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Got that one taken care of. All right, now we have McKeithen Rogers House.
Yes, last one of the night. So this is another owner applicant who applied to be a historic landmark. You may know this as the Elizabeth Lee Inn. So it's on 5th Avenue. It's an example of colonial revival architecture. There it is on the map there. It's kind of right on the border, I'll mention this, of the West Side National Register Historic District. It's in the National Register Historic District. That is not a locally designated historic district, so there's no regulation that comes with it, no protections to this property that come with that historic district. So landmarking it does provide those protections. And the owner is well aware of that, and that is part of the rationale for why they applied. So this was constructed in 1909 by D.T. McKeithen. He was a state representative from South Carolina who came up to North Carolina and built a summer residence. So he summered in Hendersonville like a lot of wealthy people did in the early 1900s. It was later sold to several prominent Hendersonville residents, one of them being Charles E. Rogers, who purchased the home in the 1950s and owned the Rogers Hosiery Mill. Couldn't find a lot on that mill, but Hendersonville being a mill town, we found it significant that a mill owner lived in this house, a very prominent house. And that is why the name for this landmark is being proposed to be the McKeithen Rogers House. So getting into the architectural significance, I mentioned this is a colonial revival style house. The style was popular at the turn of the 20th century and was seen as a way to keep the past alive during a period of rapid change in the United States. The home retains its original windows, siding, and general form. There have been some changes. The original design had paired columns on the front porch. Those were changed in 2001 by the current owner. However, they do still fit with the colonial revival style of the house. Here we can see a zoomed-in photo of the front door, the original front door. And then similar to the last landmark, the Historic Preservation Commission found the interior stairwell to be significant to the house, and the owner has agreed very willingly to have that be part of the designation, as well as there's a what was likely a servant stair that went kind of right. You go up the stairs, and then you can go down back to the kitchen area. That also is included in the nomination. This is just showing a back garage. The second story of this was added by the current owners, so very recently. It was tastefully added using elements of the colonial revival style to tie it to the original house. However, given its altered nature, it's not a contributing structure to the historic designation, but you know, it doesn't detract from the historic designation. This is showing some of the other alterations, minimal alterations. So there was a sun porch that you can see kind of in that bay window area that's been converted into a bedroom. The windows have been replaced there, but the foundation of the house hasn't been altered at all. Touching on the significance analysis, there were 3 elements that were identified, the first being associated with events. So this is looking at in the early 20th century, the trend of wealthy individuals constructing summer residences in Hendersonville. Many of these homes were built along Fifth Avenue and expanded westward into Laurel Park, associated with the lives of significant people. The Charles E. Rogers, the proprietor of the Rogers Hosiery Mill. While Hendersonville was not a heavily industrialized as some neighboring communities, textile mills played a role in the local economy throughout the 20th century, and Rogers was a notable contributor to that economic landscape. And then we touched on the architectural significance earlier. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Okay, Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been advertised in accordance with general statutes?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it has.
We will open the public hearing, and Ken Fitch has signed up to speak.
Ken Fitch, 1046 Patton Street. As one walks along Fifth Avenue, one encounters a succession of distinctive buildings. And inevitably, when one stops at the corner of North Whitted Street, one looks up from the street to view a grand home, lovingly maintained and presented, now functioning as an inviting inn experience. But given the historic context here, one would ask, who lived here? And when one opens that door, the stories begin, illuminating the times and culture of our history. Yes, this was one of the homes of those retreating from or retiring from South Carolina. And then we discovered that a later occupant was a mill owner in town. And a half block away was the home of the owner of the Gray Hosiery Mill. These associations connecting us to that mill history and its layers of history and societal connections at that time. The grand character of the building directs us to the question of architect, which so far remains unknown. But the building contractor here was known, and he was responsible for numerous distinctive buildings that still survive. And one should note that Planner Hayes, who is a growing repository of historic insights and understandings, suggests that a by-the-book architectural plan proceeding, that a contractor would implement those plans to put together a house. And that would illuminate some of the distinctive interior features that we discover here, where parts of the house were put together in construction. And if you are privileged to visit, the current owners who lovingly care for this well-appointed historic experience, they will point out distinctive historic features and their special functions, especially at the location of the historic stairway. So if you go, ask them. The applicants, for their commitment to landmarking and caring for this special property, should be greatly appreciated in anchoring and celebrating our history. The commitment this evening to the preservation of these two historic buildings that function as inns contribute to a further understanding of our history and cultural heritage and is cause for celebration. A celebration that has been embraced by the public, as demonstrated by the fact that the annual Christmas Cookie Caper Tour of historic inns this year has been sold out weeks in advance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitch. Is anyone online seeking to speak?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, anyone else here? All right. Close that public hearing. Council?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council approve the adoption of an ordinance designating the McKeithen Rogers House, PIN 9568-47-3913, as a local historic landmark.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of designating the McKeithen Rogers House as a local historic landmark, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. You got that one. Thank you, Mr. Hayes, for all of those. Right. New business. Mr. Conant?
Yes. Mayor Vogt, members of City Council, I want to bring forward a request, discussion regarding converting our Diversity and Inclusion Committee to a Citizen Advisory Committee. As you recall, our Diversity and Inclusion Committee has been on pause since the executive orders last year, and still there's lack of clarity related to those executive orders and other issues, potential legislation associated with DEI programs. However, we would like to move forward with reorganizing our Diversity and Inclusion Committee and converting it to a Citizen Advisory Committee. The roles would be very similar in the fact that, if you recall, the original reason for the Diversity and Inclusion Committee was really about citizen engagement and making sure that all citizens had a voice to City Council. So we would propose, again, to convert that to a Citizens Advisory Committee. We would reconstitute it, revise the bylaws and charter, bring that back to you, and we'd make new appointments to that committee. The committee would, in our mind, would help staff and the City Council focus on a citizen complaint policy, how we engage residents in the community to make sure we get information out, such as bond referendums and projects and things like that. Also serve as a sounding board for anything that the city's doing. So really getting back to the whole citizen engagement, citizen communication, and also help us advise us on customer service issues and how we are functioning and serving our citizens. So before we move forward with that work, I wanted to present that to the City Council, ask for your direction and your support. If you support and approve with a motion, then we'll come back as part in your spring or later in the winter with a charter and bylaws and reconstitute that particular committee.
Comments?
I have a question. The people that were on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee, is it okay if, because I think a lot of them have been in limbo and wanting to still be active and engaged, are we going to ask them first if they would like to just move over to this, or would it be a whole new reappointment? I feel like they should at least have priority to come back onto a citizen advisory board. That
your direction, we can absolutely, if you would like to give them first opportunity, or we can open it up, however you want to do it. If you want to give them first opportunity, we could do that. However you want to do that.
I mean, I recognize some may not want to continue serving, but I don't want to, weigh their service already and allow them to come on.
I agree.
Okay. So when we're redeveloping it, we'll contact them, and as we're going through the process for nominations, we'll
asset they want to continue to serve. And
Agree, because that committee very diverse.
That was a good group.
Right, thank you. There is a proposed motion here.
Madam Mayor, I move that the city council direct staff to begin the development of a citizen advisory committee.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of developing the new committee, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Have it, we have that. Thank you. Right now, the Comprehensive Stormwater Master Plan update. Mr. Huffman.
Bitch on retainer to do my presentations for me, because he's such a good speaker. Yes. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. So I believe it was May of this year that we were here at the second meeting to just provide a general update on the Comprehensive Stormwater Master Plan. Tonight is going to be, so that plan, as you know, is the goal of it is to identify capital stormwater projects. We have completed that part of the project, so now we're looking forward and how are we going to pay for some of these. And so that is the focus of this presentation this evening. That's why I have Adam Money Murr up here with me. He's going to dive into some of the financial stuff that he is much better explaining than I ever could. But first, I'll provide a very brief overview again of just what we were trying to achieve with the Comprehensive Master Plan, and then what was achieved through that master plan. So again, the primary goal is to consistently evaluate watersheds within the city, support the stormwater program goals, to develop a process that can be applied across all the watersheds to prioritize projects, and then be able to continue that process throughout the city and then reprioritize projects as new are identified. Again, we looked at projects through a criticality-based system that considered both the likelihood of failure and the consequence of failure. This is classic asset management framework. So for likelihood of failure, we're looking at things like the asset age and condition. So our stormwater assets are our catch basins, our culverts, our pipes, also our natural or open drainage systems, which are streams and creeks and ditches. And then the consequence of failure, so that is, where if something fails, what's the consequence to, or the public safety risk? Is it a major thoroughfare? Is it a residential road? Is it under somebody's house? Impacts to public roads, utilities, and critical facilities, and then contribution to private property flooding. And the key of this framework is that it helps us ensure that when we invest in projects, we're investing where the benefits and the risks reduction are maximized. The master plan included, and I'm going to dive into this a little bit more in a couple slides, but it included a very in-depth evaluation of certain portions of the stormwater system in our what we just defined as our most critical watersheds, the watersheds with the highest density of stormwater infrastructure, with the most complaints that we've received, where we've documented flooding. And so we looked at the system through a computer model, and we modeled rain events from the 2-year event all the way through the 100-year event. And then, so for some perspective, that's from a 4-inch rainstorm up to an 8.25-inch rainstorm in a 24-hour period. And then we produced, by doing that, these inundation maps, which help us visualize the depth, duration, and frequency of flooding. And so our capital project goals from a stormwater perspective, across all recommended projects, they are consistent, and they are to repair failing or undersized infrastructure, reduce flood risk for public and private assets, increase the system level of service to 10 years or better. So when we talk about the level of service of a stormwater system, we're talking about how much water can the system effectively pass during a storm event. Talking about, Sam left, but wonderful presentations about the historic nature of Hendersonville, and that also relates to our stormwater system. We have a historic stormwater system. I don't think it'd be, able to be designated for anything, but it's certainly showing signs of its age. And a lot of the system was installed prior to this type of work, master planning, engineering analysis. So we have lots of parts of our system that currently do not perform at the 10-year level. So a 10-year rainstorm comes and those parts of the system are overfull with stormwater, which results in damage to the system, and probably the biggest impact is it results in localized flooding. So I also serve as a floodplain administrator. It's a key distinction that these projects are to address localized flooding that is, for the most part, not in the 100 years. These are flooding events that would happen after a severe rainstorm. We're talking about more frequent, and I won't say more impactful, but more frequent flooding. And a big goal of this is to relocate failing private stormwater structures into the public right-of-way where it's feasible. So through our asset inventories and the work that we've done with this, we have identified many structures, stormwater structures and residential structures, that pipe goes directly under the house, very close to the house, and so we want to, those parts of the system are critical. They're carrying in part stormwater from public right-of-ways, also from private properties as well. But those property owners can't just block those storm drains and say, the water can't flow through here anymore. That would cause issues upstream, would cause a failure of the pipe system. But that's really kind of a key part of these projects that we want to focus on. So I think I'm going to work a little magic here. So this is our, through the master planning effort, one thing that we communicated to our consultant is that we wanted to have a living viewer of the work that's been done. We didn't just want a PDF document that was, a static view of the system. So what they have produced for us, which is very helpful for not just our staff to visualize the projects, but also to share the projects with the public, share it with funding agencies when we're talking to FEMA or North Carolina Emergency Management or whoever we might be looking to partner with to help achieve some of these projects. We can go to this system and show them all the work that has been done. And so what I'm going to do here is just kind of give you a preview of what we've created and how we're utilizing this to try and leverage funding to implement these projects. So here we have the west side of town, the Wash Creek watershed. It's broken up into sub-basins based on the drainage network and the local topography. And at this high level, what you'll see are the lines and dots, which are our stormwater assets. And then you'll see these polygons of varying color. Okay, so blue. So these are the inundation maps, all right, that were produced from that modeling. So here, this is the left side of the screen or slider. This is the current condition. So you'll see, for example, here, all of this blue, and then you'll see the existing assets. And so this is an existing 36-inch circular pipe, all right? All the red represent structures that the model shows could experience flooding during a 10-year event. Now, again, the way that that's determined is by these polygons, or these blue, the areas that you see as blue and orange and red. Blue represents shallow flooding. Red represents, and orange represents deeper flooding. Okay, so, shallow could be 2 to 3 inches flooding in your yard. Red and yellow could be, above a foot of flooding along the alignment there. And so here we have our existing system, and then we have our proposed projects, and so we can slide and look at the proposed infrastructure improvements based on the model that would achieve a 10-year level of service. And so this is the 10-year inundation map. And so, as we slide, obviously we can't eliminate everything. That's not feasible. But you can see that there are some major improvements possible by implementing, these various projects. So this is a part of the viewer. We also are able to go and look at individual projects, okay? So here is that similar area, the Wash Creek, and so we've broken these polygons into specific projects that have been identified. And so you can click on each polygon and it'll bring up the proposed project, the fact sheet, where it ranked, the location, what the issues are, and then also provides cost information. And then there's an additional fact sheet that we can open up, which is PDF with additional information, and there's some photos of, unfortunately, the photos, when you click on them, show up very small, so I won't open those up. But I just wanted to kind of, there's more that we can dive into. I won't go into all of it tonight because it's, a little more technical. But we can go and look at, our level of service, so we can go here and look at what watershed we're interested in, what areas where we're interested in certain flood depths. We can identify certain assets that aren't meeting their current level of service or are at the end of their useful life or are ranked very critically. And so it's a great tool for us and very helpful in visualizing these projects, not just having a sheet that says this is the project that needs to be done and a budget associated. So I can come back to this later if there's any specific questions, but if you could switch back to the presentation, please. So that's our viewer. Again, access, we don't have it open that people can just log in and look into it because it's behind our city's GIS account, but certainly accessible to all staff. And if someone calls and says, this is where I live, what's the potential project here, we could definitely show them that. So this is a list of the identified capital projects that we have from the Comprehensive Stormwater Master Plan. All of these correspond to one of those darker blue polygons that I just showed. And they all kind of share common characteristics in that they are related to chronic localized flooding, again, not in the 100-year floodplain. We're not going to be able to do stormwater improvements that are going to solve 100-year floods. They're typically undersized or failing culverts and pipes, and then there are some stream crossings required that would take some upsizing. That's tied back to the undersized culverts. So in this table, see that bottom number of $31.4 million. A key thing to consider is so this is our first iteration of the master planning effort. These are the first, I believe it's 15 projects that have been identified in those most critical watersheds. Our goal is to expand the master planning effort to watersheds that have not been evaluated, not immediately, but in the coming years, and then plug those projects back into this prioritization list with their associated prioritizations. Additionally, some of these projects, a couple of the larger ones, are closely tied or in NCDOT right-of-way. So they are not projects that we would take on by ourselves. There's probably $6 or $7 million of projects on here that are not in our right-of-way. We don't have control of those assets, so we would not then go replace those assets using our own revenue. I think this is the point that I'll turn it over to our budget specialist, so he can speak more about kind of the discussions we've had around how do we start financing projects. I'll be back.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Mike's right. This is the point where I give you the less entertaining numbers, but still very important. So obviously for a $1.7 million operating fund, stomaching $31.4 million of potential project cost is very difficult. So one approach we took was examining our debt capacity, something that we've been preparing for since about 2021, where we followed some direction to increase our stormwater rate incrementally by $1 per year up until this current year, which I think we're $8. So this all has been leading to future debt issuances, and in the spirit of providing transparent and sufficient information so Mike and his team can make excellent decisions on infrastructure moves. We met with our financial advisors at First Tryon. With First Tryon, we discussed several options. Some of you are aware of these types of options, some of you may not be. But to fund these capital projects, we reviewed pay-go options. So this is where we as the city would create a reserve fund or otherwise hold cash and complete projects incrementally. Again, $31 million, pay-go cash is not feasible without significant rate shocks to our customers, which we are trying to avoid. Another option is installment financing. The stormwater system in and of itself does not have secure assets. So with the installment financing option, we'd be looking mostly at issuing debt that is related to stormwater and taking other assets and borrowing off security from other assets to fund stormwater infrastructure projects. Another option with more borrowing capacity would be a revenue bond. So you all are familiar with this through working with our water and sewer fund. We typically issue revenue bonds when they're close to $10 million. In this model, we pledge our ability to increase rates as the security to our lenders. This is more secure. We have a higher borrowing capacity. We still don't recommend issuing a full $31 million revenue bond, but this is a more aggressive option that could fund more of the projects if needed. Finally, we reviewed quickly special obligation bonds, and in a special obligation bond, we would pledge anything that isn't a restricted revenue as the security. So similar to that revenue bond, just maybe not specific to our ability to change stormwater rates. That would be the security. Excuse me. So all of this being said, we are focused on the most financially stable and predictable path, both for the city and our customers, to implement the $31 million need. And what we focused on for this debt funding evaluation specifically was the revenue bond process, because it has the ability to take the biggest bite out of the total pie. So in our discussions with First Tryon, we talked about creating a general trust indenture, which is possible for stormwater utilities. Just like on the water sewer fund side, it involves the creation of covenants, which are legal requirements for our financial metrics. So for example, the School of Government has noted a rate covenant example might be having 1.2 to 1.5% of your net income available to pay off debt. Under this model and with a general trust indenture would come a requirement to continually build up our fund balance and manage our rates to keep our banks, lenders, the public happy. And it could potentially, we're still researching this with Parker Poe, be added to the existing water and sewer general trust indenture. So that is a potential option. We haven't got a definite yes or no on that specific piece. If we do pursue this option, the earliest possible borrowing we assume would be May or June of 2027. And that is also assuming we get a strong audit result for the Stormwater Fund for FY25, which is forthcoming, and then another strong result in FY26. Our projected borrowing capacity, what we've been preparing for, is a $7 million issuance. And again, we've prepared by raising that rate by $1 per year the past 4 years. So, coincidentally, out of Mike's projects, the 4 highest rated cost $7.5 million on estimate. So those are phase 1 of the Wash Creek Stormwater W06 project, phase 2 of the Mud Creek Stormwater MO1 project, Phase 2 of Wash Creek Stormwater W06, and Wash Creek Stormwater Project 2, Phase 1. Funding these top 4 projects in FY27 with a debt issuance, whether it be a revenue bond, a special obligation bond, or a combination of other instruments, would cost the city an estimated $620,000 a year debt service, which would begin in FY28. In this model, we assumed standard 20-year borrowing. We use the LGC's safe harbor interest rate, which is subject to change. We typically get rates more advantageous than 5.35% on our debt issuances, so this is a very conservative assumption. And we assume that we're going to pay the same amount of debt service every single year until the life of the loan. So we further evaluated the capacity beyond the top 4 projects, and the most sensible way we could amortize this debt was by grouping projects roughly into $7 million pots every 5 years to fully fund the remaining. So we do not recommend this approach. Obviously, as you saw on the last slide, we would be adding between $500,000 and $600,000 of debt every 5 years, which would spike the rates that customers are experiencing. And it would limit our capacity to adjust for future personnel needs, things like 401k, insurance, cost of living adjustments. Mike wouldn't be able to adjust for any operating needs that he may have. And we also wouldn't be able to react to any smaller projects that may come up between larger. So for the lion's share of the identified projects, we recommend pursuing some grant opportunities and/or federal and state funding. Finally, I just wanted to show visually the impact of increasing and continually pursuing debt options to fund these projects in contrast to the rate. So in this chart, the bars all show the increased debt service costs beginning in 2028 with the first revenue bond issuance, followed by another in FY32, 5 years later, followed by FY37, finally FY42 if we debt fund all of these projects. As you can see, the stormwater rate, if we go this model, begins at our current about $8 per month and goes all the way up to $25 by the calendar year 2026. I believe that's the end of my budget presentation. Are there any questions on the financial side I can help with before I give it back over to Mike? So we will continue discussions in the coming budget process. We don't recommend going beyond the $7.5 million at this point. And again, that assumes we get strong audit results in 2025 and 2026. It would require in the near term that we go up by about another $1 going into FY27.
So we're going to $8 or $9. We got a 9, 8, or we.
Be $9. That was
$9.
the plan from the original
That's what I thought.
approach. We went to $5, and then we're doing $1 a year to $9 to fund that $7 million. Yep.
Do you have any information about where that fund currently stands, the stormwater fund,
Yes.
compared to like these projects?
I don't have it personally on me at the moment, but we have audit information available online. We have budget information available online. At your coming workshop, we will be presenting the results of the FY25 audit, including the results for the stormwater.
Specifically, just you want to look at the health of it and
Yes.
where we are, fund balance and those kind of things and projects. Okay, we can absolutely have that ready.
Thank you.
Well, Mike, your track record of applying for and getting grants has been pretty good, so
Thank you very much.
confidence in you.
So, thank you again, Adam, for the great overview, the financial piece, which is very important. As Adam mentioned, and as we're coming into budget season, this is something that we're thinking of very critically. So, we would like to take a phased piecemeal approach over the next 5 years, which would allow us to address the most critical assets first from that initial list of projects. Again, allow us to maximize grant opportunities. Can't say fortunately, but because of Helene, there are some unique funding opportunities that hopefully are once in a lifetime. This approach would reduce the direct burden on the ratepayers, so we would not be continuing to raise rates. We'd be able to match project timing with our external funding cycles and then leverage our staff and consultant capacity efficiently. So again, that recommended funding strategy is to utilize the existing stormwater utility revenue for design, permitting, and small-scale projects, and to support local match requirements for grants, and then to leverage our external funding the maximum extent possible. So that would include programs like the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, the North Carolina Emergency Disaster Mitigation Fund, and a new program that is coming online. They're currently working on the French Broad River Basin Action Strategy, which is the North Carolina Flood Resiliency Blueprint, which could be a revolutionary funding opportunity and consistent funding opportunity for these types of projects. So our current external funding option, so Adam presented, the revenue bond, because of the work that we've done through the comprehensive master plan, we have projects that we can begin requesting grant funding for. So we have already taken that initial step. There are 4 individual capital projects that we have grouped together into one. There are 4 separate projects that are both in the same, so there are 2 phases of projects in the same basin in the Wash Creek area. In total, those projects would be $10 million of that $30 million. We submitted to the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program for Advanced Assistance. Advanced Assistance is their planning arm of that program, and they reviewed that favorably and directed us to apply for a phased project through the infrastructure program. That would mean that Hazard Mitigation and FEMA would pay for phase 1, the design of these $10 million projects, and then the second phase would be the construction. With FEMA, those things take time. We are currently in the process of submitting the full phased application, which is due on the 15th of the month. We've been in communication with North Carolina Emergency Management and their hazard mitigation team. And as part of the advanced assistance project, we went ahead and asked our consultant to create or to begin detailed survey of the project areas, which will set us up for either, if we decide to design the project and construct it using a revenue bond or other funding mechanism, we will have to do that anyway. If we are awarded grants, it would be considered a pre-award cost, so we would be reimbursed for that. And again, and so with FEMA, speaking to the hazard mitigation folks just today, they said, plan for a 2028 potential, opportune time to begin construction. So that is one iron in the fire that we have that is promising. We've also requested $2 million from the North Carolina Disaster Mitigation Fund, which is currently a one-time funding opportunity. I don't know if it will be repeated, but for the Helene impacted counties, there was $20 million set aside by the legislature. I believe it was earlier this year. And so there's a $4 million cap per county and a $2 million cap per community. So we requested the maximum amount to construct one of our capital improvement projects. And then I did mention the NC Flood Blueprint. So it's expected that in the 2026-2027 timeframe that they will be coming out. So that project has been in the works. It's a state level project, and the goal of that project is to create an online support tool to allow communities to identify capital projects and drainage improvement projects and flood mitigation projects. And the other is to create a river basin action strategy where that blueprint, and this is a project that is housed at North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, would take the action strategy and the projects identified in the action strategy and go to the legislature and say, here's the need that we have in these basins across North Carolina for these projects. I've met with the staff. I showed them the tool that I showed you. They were extremely impressed with that and felt that all of the projects that we have identified would be eligible to be included in the action strategy. That is not a guarantee of funding, but it does mean that they would then take those projects as part of the action strategy to the legislature and say, these are projects that we need funding for. So that's the current kind of state. That's the approach that we would recommend. And with that, I'll take any feedback or questions.
Comments? Questions?
I just want to thank Mike and the team and Adam for going through this analysis, because we had been talking about doing our revenue bond, but as the budget team and Mike got together and we looked with the first try, and it just wasn't going to be feasible as it relates to maintaining responsible rates. So I think this is a great approach. We may come back at some point with a revenue bond option based on the health of the fund, but I think it's a good approach at this.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Okay. All right, another update on Helene recovery. Holly.
Right. So just trying to bring these to council quarterly. This update, we last did the update at the year anniversary in September. So back here in December to give council another update on where we are. So this will be not as expansive as the September update, a little more brief, but needing to hit key points for council and the public's knowledge of where the city is in the recovery process. So we'll talk about our financial position, and we'll talk about FEMA public assistance today. So public assistance under, our financial position in relation to FEMA PA. Our current, you saw this same slide as September, our current budget is not changed. It's still $10.0 million with a projected budget total of $160 million. Again, to note, the wastewater treatment facility makes up $102 million of that 160. Our non-reimbursable actuals have not changed, about $288,000 that the city has paid for related to the response and has hit our books as of FY25. Some numbers that have changed are our current actuals and obligations. That has increased to about $9.2 million. So at some point here, we will be needing to come back to City Council with a budget amendment to increase our authorized spending level. The current revenues, those two key numbers that have changed is on the FEMA side. That has increased to about $1.6 million. That was around $950,000 or so at the previous update. And our insurance proceeds, we have finalized the insurance claim thanks to public services team and the accounting team and our HR team at $3.4 million. That was previously $1.5 million. And we still have $10.6 million in forgivable loans or cash flow loans. And so that brings our total net surplus from a cash flow perspective to $6.4 million. So this is an increase in our net position since the last update. So we've brought in a lot more reimbursements, insurance, and FEMA funds since our last trip up here in September. We've got a timeline on the bottom just as a reminder of the process to get reimbursed by FEMA. General project overview, again, we have applied for categories A, B, C, E, F, and G. So we didn't have any in category D. of those, there were 89 projects. Currently, we've had 4 obligated. 1 is pending obligation / resubmission. 10 are with FEMA review, 54 are in our hands, and 20 have been withdrawn. Again, about 75% of the cost is in water and sewer. We have 2 large park projects, Patton and Whitmire, that we're pursuing with FEMA, and we have about almost $3 million in emergency response costs. Again, just an overview of the map that's available of where all the projects are located. And getting into the specific categories, I'm going to highlight some of these and some of the important initiatives we've been working on. So since last time, we have finalized our Category A program. So we've been obligated the remaining $55,839 from FEMA. Again, our force count labor and equipment was obligated, and that's complete. Our temporary repairs, 26,000 of that has been obligated. That's related to temporary HVAC that we had to install at the wastewater treatment facility. That I believe is still in place today. And the $170,000, we just resubmitted that this morning, actually. That is for hazard pay associated with our inclement weather policy. And so there were some questions on that from the FEMA side. We brought it back in-house, worked with our consultant, built a justification, and have resubmitted that. So that has been resubmitted as of today. And then we have the remaining invoices, contracts, whatever term they want to use for that, that is most acceptable. We have about $1.3 million in funding there that we have been working with FEMA to clarify and get moved through the process. So that would be the last of our Category A and B, our emergency response costs. And once we get that final Category B contracts and invoices submitted, that should clear us from the emergency response category, and we'll be working fully in the permanent project categories. I want to highlight a couple things that we've been working on. One is fixed cost offers. So this is a program that's authorized by FEMA where the applicant can take a submission with a engineered cost estimate and a justification letter and say, hey, FEMA, we think this project is going to cost this much money. We'd like a fixed cost offer option. FEMA reviews our numbers and then offers us a lump sum of money that we can then accept or reject. And if we accept it, we just take the money. We kind of wash our hands of each other. FEMA still does closeout and audits and things like that, but it's not a reimbursable basis or anything like that. It's not actuals. We would just receive that lump sum and we would go and pursue the project on our own. And so we are looking at that as a very viable option for our wastewater treatment plant project, the Patton Park and Pool project, and the Whitmire Activity Center project. Since all 3 of those projects, we have very good estimates already built and cost justifications built. And so we're working with our consultant to get those offer letters. We've already put in letters of intent for all of these projects, but we're working to get these submitted to FEMA and see if we can get a decent amount of funding to go ahead and start these projects.
So I'm assuming they don't give you the lump sum that you need. That's the trade-off?
We'll see. So Whitmire will probably be the quickest and easiest one we submit to them, and it will be the test ground for it. And they do, from our consultants' discussion with previous experience with these, is sometimes they actually add a little bit more contingency in based on, they don't want us to come back to them and say, hey, we messed up on that offer and we need more money. It's kind of this is it. And so we're hoping we'll get fair offers. We have some numbers in our heads of what would be an appropriate response. And the best thing about this is, say they do offer us what we're asking for, say Whitmire, for example, we think it's $4.2 million or so of direct FEMA related costs. Say they say, yeah, we'll give you 4.15. We take that money and then we can go do the project. We still have to do the repairs for FEMA, but then we can do, we can provide additional funding to what we want with the facility. And we don't have to go through any sort of approvals and back and forth reimbursements with FEMA. It's a kind of clean way to do it. And the benefit is if they say, we're only going to give you $1 million, we can say, no, sorry, we're not interested in that. And we continue down the same FEMA PA process that we're already in. So there's not really anything to be lost in the process. There's just the opportunity to kind of get some of these projects moving in a more expedited manner and get funding in-house. One other thing I want to highlight, we've mentioned this before, but our small projects, these are projects under $1 million. We have approximately 21 that we've submitted for in here. I think that number's gone up some. But these are projects like you'll see if you drive down 3rd Avenue, often you'll notice there's that sidewalk that has been roped off for a while and has fallen into the creek there, or the stream. These are smaller projects. However, our staff have gone through the process of developing scopes, designs, and estimates, stamped estimates for these projects. And our goal was to, get these into FEMA, and they're supposed, since they're under $1 million, they're supposed to review them quickly. Checkbox, here's your money, go do the work. We found that these were hung on a technical issue in the grants portal, and they had just kind of been sitting there. So now that we've discovered the kind of flow, a lot of FEMA, if you did any individual assistance, you'll realize that, you've got to click yes and no in the right ways to actually get somewhere sometimes. That's kind of what happened with these projects, and we don't have any control over that, but we did finally discover it, and now we think we can get these projects moving. So we're hoping this 3rd Avenue project, for example, Richard Shook prepared this $172,000 project, good scope laid out. Hopefully we can get this money in-house and start doing these repairs. This is an example of what those projects are like. And I do want to take one moment just to thank the engineering team and thank Brent. In particular, Brent, I think 10 years ago, started really leveraging John and myself and saying, hey, we need to up staff internally so we can control our own destiny and be able to really take things in our own hands. And Mike Huffman is an example of that. Brent really lobbied to get Mike's position approved, and without having these great professional staff, we would not be in this position where we have this type of data and this type of information, where we're way further ahead than a lot of other organizations out there. So we're really lucky to have that, and I want to say thanks to Brent for fighting for that, and thanks to Mike and all the other professional staff that make this possible. Just on some other projects, so that's a big bulk of what we're focused on, is those fixed cost offers. Those are our three highest priority projects. We got the large handful of small projects. We're finishing up the Cat A and B emergency submissions. Some other projects out there are City Hall. We're very close to having bids in hand for this project that we can submit to FEMA and go ahead and close that project out. City Ops that we're in here is pretty much complete, so we're just waiting for that to move through as well. That project is in the same FEMA project group as City Hall, so it has to wait for City Hall to keep moving. And then some other things just to highlight are our reservoirs and intakes. I believe it was last week or this week, the French Broad intake is officially online. And so we're treating water from the French Broad, so we are officially more drought resilient than we were a couple weeks ago. Mills River intake, as you can see in the photo, was damaged pretty extensively. We've had divers out there. We've had all sorts of work going on in our water and sewer system. I just want to highlight that because we are moving those projects forward, and it's something that shouldn't go unnoted. And before I jump into questions, I do just want to give one other update, again, related to Mike's discussion about hazard mitigation and grants. We have received word, it's not official yet, but I do believe we'll be receiving a $5 million forgivable loan for the wastewater treatment facility, and a $10 million, $5 million being forgivable loan for an east side looping project and a Brookside Camp water upsizing or parallel? Yeah, a resiliency water line project, which will help Advent Health not lose pressure. So, some good things coming our way. Any questions?
Is that Advent Loop already in a capital plan?
It is in our capital plan, but it was further out.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the update, for keeping us in the loop on what's happening and keeping up with FEMA and everybody else. Get the money back. Thank you. You might as well stay up there. You've got the next couple of them. Next is the Dogwood Hotel RFP.
Yep, so the Dogwood Hotel RFP. So this is an update for council. I want to review just a project timeline, just to give us some basis for where this is coming from, an overview of what this project would look like, and a timeline for an RFP release that, with your concurrence tonight, that will go ahead and get out there on the street. So just some history. This you can go back to the 50s and 20s and way back if we wanted to talk about hotels downtown, but I'm going to start in the spring of 2016 when we second last issuance of an RFP for the Dogwood Hotel site and the Gray Mill site. So we were seeking a downtown hotel. In 2017, we engaged with Belmont Sayre for the redevelopment of Gray Hosiery Mill into apartments. So at a point during that process, the focus changed from we're not going to be able to make a downtown hotel work, but we do believe we can use historic tax credits to leverage them to turn the mill into apartments. And we saw that as a great opportunity to revitalize the mill, and we started engaging on that process. In 2019, we still saw the need for a downtown hotel. The mill was well on its way to construction and opening, and so we released a new RFP for a downtown hotel on the Dogwood site in conjunction with our budding discussions about a downtown parking deck. In 2019, we acquired the land at 5th and Church to build a parking deck, and then in 2020, the new Gray Mill Apartments opened. And I do believe we've officially closed that project out.
We have, and gotten our money back. So, we at 500, and we had some, I will say, incentive costs to an additional 50,000, thanks to the team's work. So we got our 500 plus, in addition to other money that we loaned. So it was actually more than that because we got fully repaid plus 50,000. So I think it ended up
close to 800,000.
Yeah, I think it's close to 800,000.
That money is going back into housing work and initiatives that we have going on with our housing plan. So great project. It seems all the great projects take about a decade, so, at least. So I wanted to celebrate that a little bit here. In 2020, the start of 2020, we engaged with Blue Star Hospitality for a Spring Hill Suites on the Dogwood site. And then we all remember what happened a couple months later. COVID occurred, and the city and Blue Star unwound the agreement just based on the feasibility of that project moving forward. In 2021, the city approved plans for the Courthouse Inn, which is the site on Church between 1st and 2nd, right behind the historic courthouse. And we approved plans for the Cedars Fairmont that is moving forward as well. The Courthouse Inn has not moved forward, and we have not seen any sort of motion on that in years. So at this point, based on no motion on the Courthouse Inn, and really the Cedars Fairmont being more of a condominium project with options for lockout rooms, we still feel that there is a need for a downtown hotel. In 2023, we opened the new parking deck downtown, and this year we've received multiple private developer inquiries about a downtown hotel amenity and what parcels may be available. So that has brought us to today, and we would pursue either the downtown development project statute or a similar development agreement statute, which allows us to issue an RFP in conjunction with a community development plan, which for this we would be using our downtown master plan to engage with a private developer to develop a public-private partnership for a hotel in this The downtown master plan guidance identifies this site as most suitable for commercial development. It also identifies it as underdeveloped and identified mixed-use infill on the downtown edge master plan concept for that site. We've also identified the loss of historic hotels in the Gen H plan, and it also identifies the potential expansion of the city's municipal service district to the downtown edge in some form or fashion. So within our RFP draft right now, we just received an updated property appraisal for the site, the 3 parcels valued at $4.3 million as of Tuesday. We would also propose an MSD expansion into the downtown edge hospitality district, which would include sites like the Waverly, the Fairmont, so on and so forth. So this would be more of like an inns and hotels area that we would then try to support through enhanced municipal services. And then we would also offer infrastructure improvements, including streetscapes, water sewer infrastructure, and the like. Just a picture of 7th Avenue's recent streetscape, just for reference. So if we do move forward from tonight, we would release the RFP on December 15th with a submittal deadline of February 15th, so 60 days, baking in the holiday in there for interested parties to submit. We would start staff review February 16th, and then we would come back to City Council for review and or approval or denial of any sort of moving forward towards a development agreement. So that's kind of the starting point. We would come to you, you could see all the responses and say, yes, we want to move forward, or no, we do not want to move forward. Council always reserves the right to say, we're not going to offer this to anybody. This wasn't as we expected. And then from there, if council does desire to move forward, we would enter into contract negotiations for a development agreement with the developer, where we would spell out the specifics of what the actual development would look like, just like we did with the hosiery mill. And I'll take any questions.
We wanted to present this information to you so that you would see it publicly. We'd also put it out there for the public to understand what we're doing, make the public aware of this RFP, also potential developers, get the opportunity for council to ask any questions, give us any direction. If you didn't want to go forward at this point, again, as Brian said, at any point you can withdraw the RFP or decide to not move forward, but just want to do it publicly and give you opportunity for questions or any change in direction. If we don't hear anything different, we're going to move forward.
Okay. A lot of nods here.
Ron, my biggest concern is traffic. Fairmont, then we have the Dawu. That's my biggest.
We would be able to, under this model, we can work with the developer to say, you need to make sure you design it in this way to address any sort of traffic issues that might arise.
Congested.
Yeah, and if that's a consideration, we could say you have to enter off of 5th or Washington, so on and so forth.
Anything else? All right, and next, fiscal year 27 through fiscal year 29, strategic plan update.
Here I am.
Again.
Just tonight, just an update on the process to keep you informed, because we will be bringing a whole lot of information to you at your retreat in February. Really, to date, we have worked through our community input aspect of this process, and I just want to give an update and a thanks to everyone who's participated in that process. So the first piece of this was our Council Conversations Initiative. We held 5 meetings across the city. Really, this was for open conversation, but we also included voting on top priorities for the council's upcoming strategic plan, and general ideation or ideas community might have about what we should be doing to improve those areas. So not going to share the results of that today, but just want to give you an update on that process has been completed. You can see, for example, housing growth management community character received 28 votes, and they have various ideas about how we can make that better, from stronger code enforcement to predictable costs for housing and city services. We also did a focus group of 6 community leaders in a 4-meeting sprint gap analysis, and what we really asked them to do in that was generate a list of what we called the 3 Ps: projects, programs, and policies that they'd like to see City Council consider in looking towards the future. We then hit them with a lot of information around population trends, future disruptors, and had them work through a gap analysis of where they wanted to see Hendersonville in 20 years and work backwards into today and what we needed to be doing over the next 3 years to get to that desired future state. We had staff come in and provide information based on what they were interested in that second and first meeting. So they had a session where they sat down and talked with staff about public safety, housing, and other interests. And then they finalized a list of the 3 Ps: programs, projects, and policies that we'll provide to you all before your retreat. I was happy that it kind of worked like I expected. They came in with their preconceived knee-jerk 3 Ps, and when they voted to prioritize, they didn't vote for any of their initial 3 Ps, and they voted for their finalized list of 3 Ps. But I thought it was a great group. We had Sarah Cosgrove from the Blue Ridge Builders Association. We had Stephen Gwaltney of Park National Bank on Main Street. We had Melissa Soto of True Ridge, John Bryant of Pardee, Virginia Teagle, resident. I felt it was important to just have a resident on there as well, and prior chair of our sustainability board, then Andrew Riddle of Whitney Commercial. So we had a good, diverse group with diverse interests, and they really took this seriously, worked through it, and I appreciate all the time they gave to this. It was fast, hectic at times, but they came out with some really good ideas that align with what you all have talked about, what the community at large has talked about, and what our staff talks about. We also did city council interviews. These were 1-hour direct interviews with each council member, and the city manager. Again, this was following that gap analysis, and we were looking to see what that desired future state of the city is. Some just fun quotes that I thought were, keeping the hometown feel while accommodating growth. Hendersonville hospitality is matched by service excellence and mutual respect in civic life, and that we're grounded, respectful, service-oriented, and committed to continuous improvement. And we'll share all the results of those 3 meetings with council in the very near future. In conjunction with this, we had an all-day meeting with staff, so staff could take these 3 reports and put their lens on the information that was received from the community, because we know it's very critical for staff to have a cohesive approach when we're talking about what might be feasible, what might not be feasible, and just shared vision and alignment across all of our plans. And so we discussed the same disruptors. We did a SWOT analysis, discussed the vision that was developed by the focus group and city council. We reviewed the community input meeting summaries, and we identified what winning looks like for these different areas. And so one thing you're going to see leading into the council retreat is we've had this kind of structure of a vision, mission, and values, followed by focus areas that were developed way back in 2014. So the vision, mission, and focus areas were all developed at the same time. We added values in 2021, and all of that flowed into the strategic plan, which feeds off of budget, departmental plans, goal tracking, and KPIs. And so these focus areas have kind of gotten lost over the years. And we had 10 areas in our existing plan. We felt it was a bit too broad, and so we're reframing some of that framework that we're going to bring to you in February. Just to give you a taste of that, what we're looking at is kind of like our programs. That would be our focus areas now, and that would be public safety, parks, strong infrastructure, businesses and economic development, housing, growth management, et cetera. And then we're changing the way we think about the next set to be enablers, so how we deliver those services well. So that would be a strong budget and finance engine that's sustainable, a professional and well-trained city workforce, a high-functioning city council, community partnerships, and an educated and engaged community. And so we'll have a whole set for that area, and then we'll have strategic lenses, which is how we think and decide, and that would be like long-term and future planning is important to the city to make sure that we're making decisions that improve us in the long term for the future. So just heads up on that. There'll be some framework changes that we're going to put forward. And ultimately, we are through a big set of 4 areas. What's coming up next is we have a staff survey that's out currently to all staff to get more of a climate survey from staff. We did a stay survey like this back in 2018 or 19, and it produced a lot of the guidance that we followed from our benefits and compensation decisions. So, paid family leave, 401k matches, pay and class studies, that was information that came out of that stay survey. This survey that we have out right now is very similar to that. So we'll hear from all staff. It's anonymous. They're going to give us true feedback on how we can improve as an organization. And then we'll have our leadership retreat in January, and we'll be coming to you all in February to discuss all of this information. And I'll make sure to give you good at least 30 to 45 days to digest everything before we get into that room. So any questions? I just want to give you an update on that process.
Okay, look forward to it, as always.
Y'all need to set aside about a week to do all the reading that you're gonna have to. No, I
30 to 45 days is a long time. That makes me very nervous. Also, you better get it to us soon.
no, it's very well done. It's very well done.
Yeah, as always. Okay, annual schedule of meetings.
Mayor Vogt, members of the City Council, we have presented you in your agenda packet your proposed schedule for 2026 meeting schedule. We want to present that for your approval. Stand by to make any changes or anything. Wanted to give it to you ahead of time to see if it conflicted with any vacations or other events, but there's still flexibility through the year, but wanted to provide that to you. Ask you to approve the meeting schedule for 2026.
Anything? Okay.
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council approve the 2026 meeting schedule as presented.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the meeting schedule as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Got that. Thank you. Right, now we have boards and commissions appointments. We've got the list here. We'll go on down. The Environmental Sustainability Board, we have 3 vacancies, and all of them are leaving when their terms are up. We have 1 applicant from the city, and then we have at-large positions as well, but let's look at the one for the city to start with. Would anyone like to make a nomination for the Environmental Sustainability Board, filling an unexpired term for this city?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to nominate Richard Harris to the unexpired term on the Environmental Sustainability Board.
Okay, Richard Harris has been nominated. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of Richard Harris for the Environmental Sustainability Board, filling an unexpired term, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Okay. We have lots of people interested for the at-large position that we have available. Anyone like to make a nomination?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to nominate Kimberly Blackwell to the at-large position of the Environmental Sustainability Board.
Kimberly Blackwell has been nominated. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of Kimberly Blackwell to the ESB for an unexpired term, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Have it, and Kimberly Blackwell is appointed. right, Historic Preservation Commission. We have 4 slots up for renewal. 3 of the 4 would like to stay if possible. We have one nominee in addition to the people who would like to continue on. Are there any nominations for the Historical Preservation Committee?
Madam Mayor, I move the City Council reappoint Stan Smith, Ralph Hammond Green, and Lauren Matoyan to the 3-year term expiring in 2028 for the Historic Preservation Committee.
Thank you. Stan Smith, Ralph Hammond Green, and Lauren Matoyan have been nominated for Historic Preservation for reappointment. Are there further nominations? Those in favor of Stan Smith, Ralph Hammond Green, and Lauren Matoyan for reappointment to the Historic Preservation Committee, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Anyone like to make any further nominations?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to nominate James Brewer to the Historic Preservation Committee.
Okay. James Brewer has been nominated. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of James Brewer for the Historic Preservation, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Okay. And Planning Board. We have 4 members who are all interested in reapplying. And that's it for Planning Board. Would anyone like to make any nominations?
Madam Mayor, I move that City Council reappoint Robert Johnson, Betsy Zafra, Kyle Gilgis, and David McKinley to the Planning Board for a 3-year term expiring in December 2028.
Okay. Is Robert Johnson, Betsy Zafra, Kyle Gilgis, and David McKinley have been nominated to the Planning Board. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of those 4 people to the Planning Board say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. All right, got that. Tree Board. We have, again, quite a few people who are interested, which is nice to know. And we only have 1 vacancy. Would someone like to make nominations to the Tree Board?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to nominate Bill Leatherwood.
Bill Leatherwood has been nominated for the Tree Board. Are there further nominations? Not. Those in favor of Bill Leatherwood for the Tree Board say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries, and Bill Leatherwood has been appointed. Okay. All right. I think that's it of those. And then we've got a multimodal planning program, bicycle plan grant.
Madam Mayor, Council, good evening. I'll be quick. We received a grant through NCDOT. They're running the project for a bicycle plan update. And actually, it'll be a full-on new bicycle master plan, similar to what we did with Walk Hendo a few years ago, back in 2022. As part of this process, they encourage a steering committee to be formed. And so I think as part of the packet or the cover sheet, there were some suggested types of positions or organization representatives from organizations that are part of that. You can just go onto our website, and if you search pedestrian plan steering committee, you'll find out who was on the steering committee for the pedestrian plan. The goal would be to kind of pick the same type of people or same type of representatives. We, staff, will work to reach out to some folks and get interest and come back with an actual list of people, hopefully in January. we will need, it would be good to have a council representative, so thinking about that, or if you want to, anybody wants to volunteer now, I suppose that's fine too. But we'll come back with an actual list next month. We were just kind of bringing it up so you could start thinking about it. And obviously, if you have any folks in mind, feel free to reach out. You can reach out to me, and we'll make sure that we get in touch with them and make sure they're okay with the commitments. Probably be about 3 meetings. I think that's Mayor Pro Tem Hensley served on the Fed Plan Steering Committee. I think we had 3 meetings, so not a huge commitment.
Yeah, just for the public and for the, the council, really, we've got some staff members, but including, as Brent mentioned, a council member, but we'll be looking for somebody from a medical facility or health representative, senior citizen, someone maybe from a retirement community, chamber or downtown business, major employer, school system rep, major community representative, someone who can speak for a large sector of the community, someone from the Y or other physical activity center organizations, well-known town residents that can potentially represent mixed demographic, a knowledgeable bicycle or pedestrian advocate, local businesses, and then some DOT reps and others. And then other considerations are any garden clubs, faith-based organizations, persons with disabilities, historical societies, things like that. So that's the list. Really, I think guidance Blake was looking for and Brent were looking for is council's concurrence that we put this committee together and ask you to start recruiting, thinking about people. We'll put advertisements out and we'll get a list together, but we'll be open to your feedback and be contacting you individually. So if you have specific people you want to be on this committee, maybe each of you could identify a person. We'll put a list together and see where they fit in the category and then fill in around it.
Right. Council? Wanda. Thank you. Want to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move City Council approve city staff to create a bicycle steering committee.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of creating a bicycle steering committee say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Motion carries. Hear more in January. Thank you. City managers report.
Mayor Vogt, members of the City Council, your contingency report and adjustment report is in your packet for your review. If any questions, we'll be glad to do that. There's one item of business. I'll call Brian up as Brian's coming. We are approaching the holidays, Christmas, and we have mentioned to council that has become somewhat of a tradition to provide Christmas bonuses to our team members. We have looked at our revenue and finances, and we're in really good shape. So management team would propose establishing a $1,000 bonus for full-time and $500 for our part-time, including our crossing guards. Again, we do have the revenue to do that. We ask council to approve that, please, and we will begin that implementation so that those checks can be delivered before Christmas. After that motion, I have one other thing, Mayor.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to authorize the city manager to provide a one-time appreciation bonus in the amount of $1,000 for all full-time employees and $500 for all permanent part-time employees, to include crossing guards. I further move City Council to adopt a budget amendment providing funds for the bonuses as presented.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not. Those in favor of the proposed bonuses say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it. Okay.
And then, Mayor, members of council, when the city manager has 8 hours driving back and forth to Raleigh, he comes up with crazy ideas. So I on the way back today, I came up with this, too much time in my car by myself. I came up with this crazy idea that We are within 1 year of the mayor's retirement, so I came up with this crazy idea called Mayor's Memories. And I went and pulled out the minutes from December the 7th, 1989. That was the meeting where Mayor Barbara Volk was sworn in. She was the lone new member at that time, was sworn in with Sam Mills, Guy Patrick Whitmire, and Joel Wright. I didn't know, Mayor, that you unseated Mayor Niehoff, who came back a few years later. Is that right? I mean, that's the way.
No, he ran for mayor
Oh, and didn't run.
and did not
Right,
win
okay.
that
Right.
election.
Okay. It wasn't real clear how that happened, so you.
I
You were
did not unseat him.
okay. Well, it made a good story. So, but on December 7th, 1989, Barbara G. Volk was elected for the first time to the Hendersonville City Council, and I think that's a good start for my mayor's memories as far as the oath of office and the rest is so. That's a start, so stay tuned for other things under manager's comments. So,
Thank you for those memories.
I was almost 3. I was almost 3.
City Council, anything anyone wants to bring up?
I would just like to wish everyone Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah holidays, and thank you to all of our staff who make our lives much easier and so much better.
Thank you. Closed session, we do have that tonight. To do that.
Madam Mayor, I move that City Council enter closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A1, 3, and 6 to prevent the disclosure of information that's privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of this state or of the United States or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes, to consult with an attorney employed or retained by the public body in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body, and to consider the case of Public Service Company of North Carolina, DBA Enbridge Gas, versus Moore and Sun Site Contractors, Inc., City of Hendersonville et al., 25-CV0025-32440, and the case of Peter Freer versus City of Hendersonville, 24-CVS-001-022-440, and to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness of an individual public officer or employee.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor of entering closed session say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Ayes have it.